Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is living into new potentials and the distinction or the transformation available when we live into our emerging selves, our emerging future, and our potentials rather than living out of our past. So before we get started, we're going to take a couple minutes to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together and feel the friction, the pressure, the temperature, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Roslyn. How wonderful to start the day with you. Welcome, and to everyone else, welcome, welcome, who's joining us. We're talking today about living into our emerging selves, living into our potentials, rather than living out of the past. And the idea here is that as we evolve, we get glimpses of who we are becoming or who we imagine ourselves to be, who we can be. And we often put obstructions in the way by defining ourselves by our past. That we are not bound by our history. That's actually the truth, unless we choose those bonds. And oftentimes oftentimes those choices are unconscious, like we don't actually choose, but we do have the ability to choose to be free of them, to not identify with them, to live beyond the beliefs and limitations that we've imposed upon ourselves. And an example, this conversation is coming out of a conversation yesterday with my coaching group, where we were exploring what it is to identify, instead of identifying with our past, to identify with who we're becoming. And so, for instance, one person has had a lifelong struggle with anxiety. And so the way they were identifying themselves was as someone who has a lifelong challenge with anxiety, rather than someone who is exploring freedom. And the thing is expanding into a greater and greater experience of freedom. So feel the difference in that definition of oneself. When I am someone who has experienced a lifetime of anxiety, the likelihood is that I'm going to continue experiencing anxiety, and my life is going to be defined by my fight against anxiety. Versus, what if I am someone who is expanding into more and more freedom? It's a whole different experience. It's not defined by anxiety. If I am someone who feel the difference between being someone who has had a lifetime struggle with money, or has had an ongoing struggle with money or finances or financial freedom, versus I'm someone who is becoming more and more masterful in my relationship with money, or I am becoming more and more masterful in the realm of finance. Very different than who I am is at the effect of versus who I am is expanding beyond. And so one aspect, if we're defining ourselves by our past, who we are is those limitations. If we define ourselves, and I don't know how big a fan I am of defining ourselves to begin with, but at least if we look at ourselves as part of, as our emergence, then that's more affirmative in the fulfillment of our potentials and our possibility. And we've talked about life as process. If we talk about ourselves as our past, we're continuing the past. We're kind of living from something that's dead, something that's over, and then projecting that forward and expanding into, or trying to expand into, something that's a constraint and a constriction, versus being able to move beyond that, to be in a progressive process. And I think there's so much power in this, and it's so simple, and it's so readily overlooked, I think, because we're not conditioned to be a becoming as much as we are conditioned to be a fixed and static kind of entity. Who are you? I love this who are you question. Maybe I should have called today who are you, or who am I? I think it's such a powerful, powerful question. My inquiry into it came from an segment on NPR, National Public Radio, quite a while back. And it was interviewing lots of people in responding to that question, who are you? And people would start with, well, I'm a sister, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm an aunt, I'm a teacher, I'm a all a meditator, whatever it is. And with each of those identifications, one can't help but recognize that we are more than each of those things, right? So what is an expanded definition that includes all of those things and isn't limited by any of them? And this is very much the same question really for today, which is uh, about living into new potentials as we evolve, as we heal. New horizons open up to us, new vistas get cleared as we clear the way of the limiting beliefs that we might have. New vistas open up, new potentials, and we can then live into those potentials, which is a greater and greater fulfillment of our beingness, our essence. And what if we were to identify more with that than the past? What if we were to put our sights forward rather than backward? So many of us spend so much of our lives looking back, often with regret, sometimes wistfully, sometimes sorrowfully. And the comfort in looking back is that it's a known, or we I think we delude ourselves to believe that it's a known. And why I say that is because we tend to think that the past is fixed and immutable. But the truth is, our memories are changing all the time. And our experience of events in the past was constrained by whatever the context was at the time. And we can be looking back at it and seeing, remembering things very differently, experiencing things quite differently. And it's so that shows us that it's not in any way a fixed commodity. It's at the very least a function of interpretation and expression. So the way that we talk about something is indicative of the way we're interpreting it and contextualizing it. And to be living life through the life we've lived rather than the life we can live is a radically different experience. To be able to grow into, move into, emerge as this ongoing process. We're in better shape if we're looking where we're going than if we're trying to go in that direction looking backward, right? I think what we're looking at is begs the question of what is life about? And that's one of those forever questions, sort of like, who am I, right? In the same realm, who am I and what is life about? And if we look at life as process, life as emergence, even the notion of looking forward and looking back is such an oversimplification, isn't it? Life is, it's not a linear process. It is process, but I wouldn't say it's linear. Maybe it's holistic. Maybe it's multidimensional, multifaceted, kind of happening from the inside out and the outside in. Maybe it's a pulse. Maybe it's a pulse of energy, vitality, thought, conception, experience, sensation, at least in our physicalness, right? We're experiencing we're experiencing change. And it's interesting in the face of experiencing change, how we seek continuity, right? We tend to look for what's the same, live with what's the same, pretend that it's the same, even though it's radically changing from one day to the next, from 1 minute to the next, that nothing really truly is the same, but we pretend that it is. So Rosalind says, another way to say I am is seeing the self as a conduit or a vessel, which the qualities, through which the qualities can be experienced. As if the self is empty and the qualities can differ moment to moment, temporary. Yes, 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 Rosalind. That's so much where I've been playing these days, is who I am is life expressing itself through this unique vessel. And we talked about the empty, the hollow bone, being able to be a conduit for mother life in her fullest expression. And so that's being the process, being the vessel through that experiences these qualities and through which life expresses itself. And I have to say, the more deeply I go into that experience, the more profound it becomes, the more rich a reward it provides, the deeper a sense of connection with life itself, with the entire experience. It just deepens and becomes more and more rich. And it is, in its definition, it is expansive. We just keep being that flow, being that expression. It becomes, there's greater ease in life and less identification with all the ups and all the downs, and less suffering and less resistance, and more connection, and moving into greater freedom. Is greater freedom as we're not holding on anymore, and not having to know how it's going to turn out, not trying to control it, not making it about me, this whatever ego identity I want to try and hold on to, and take the reins of life rather than allow life to direct me, whatever the expression is, or direct the experience that I am. The thing about allowing ourselves to be processed is that we allow ourselves to change. And we don't have to say, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and I'm going to be this way until I die. And then something comes along and challenges those ideas and challenges those beliefs. And then we have a crisis, because who we believed ourselves to be then becomes fractured or disrupted. I think about, I'm so fascinated right now to see this information coming forth and into mainstream media about extraterrestrials. And it's something that I've been following for quite some time. And I just find it fascinating to see how just to be witnessing this new emergence, like this new factor in our consciousness, in our awareness, that was not even accounted for at all in up until first by so many people up until recently, where it's been more mainstreamed more and more. And to be thinking about what I've heard in listening to some of this stuff lately is that that they will be arriving in 2027. And I don't know if that's true or not true. I mean, I tend to believe that they are already here, but what does it mean that 2027 is when it's happening? And how interesting, like, how is that going to shift reality for so many people? It's one thing to think about, to muse upon the possibility. It's another for that possibility to become a reality, especially when we think about, again, identity, how human beings have believed that we are the preeminent intelligence in the universe, right? And certainly in our world is all about us and fighting with each other and dominating and controlling each other in so many ways, and trying to evolve and develop new ways of being that might be more unitive. It's very, very interesting because that's such a like a wild hair kind of thing, an outlier kind of influence to shift the mix, to shift the story of humanity on this planet. I'm fascinated. I'm absolutely fascinated and intrigued to be noticing and looking at what the shift of consciousness is and needs to be able to assimilate that different dimension of reality. Like, what if, I think it's not even a what if, it's so, like, we know that we're coming into a collective admission that there's something else, there's something more. And it begs the question, like, well, what is that? And who are we as humanity in the context of this other, obviously more advanced intelligence? I think we're going to be experiencing such interesting transformations of consciousness and awareness. I mean, how could we not, in the face of this question being something that is no longer hypothetical? It's still not sunk in, I don't think. maybe it's just starting to, maybe it's just some people are just now beginning to entertain it as a possibility that could be real instead of fantastical, as we've been conditioned to believe. So Rosalind says, help humans make a device to produce light therapy for cell repair. I think certainly that could happen. I just imagine maybe helping to clean up the planet, to clean up all the devastation that we've wrought, and climate change and pollution and destruction of all our resources and of the heart and soul of the planet itself. We're in the 6th mass extinction. We're killing off the planet, and we're killing off each other. And we're doing that with the way that we have manufactured food and manufactured energy. And, we have just pillaged the planet, and we're paying for it with climate change and weather changes and just sucking the blood out of the planet, destroying the water, destroying the air, destroying the water, destroying the soil, and our systems are such that we can't stop it. Like we're so addicted to our capitalistic and fossil fuel-based economy, and money as an end of in itself. Our values are so twisted and misplaced. And we have been propagating these ideas of separation and domination and control. Yes, there's an emergence. Thankfully, there is an emergence of a new awareness, but there's such momentum to these old ways of being that have been so incredibly destructive that we really do need help turning it around. So anyway, it's a fascinating time to see what's happening with this, and that some people are ignoring it is very interesting too. That we're going to be ostriches burying our heads in the sand for as long as possible in so many cases. Anyway, interesting. What is it to live into new potentials? And truly, like, this whole extraterrestrial thing is opening up all kinds of new potentials that were not collectively imagined before. So that's it for today. Fun stuff. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And as always, it's such a privilege and pleasure to have the opportunity to muse together with you in these mornings. And until next time, so much love to you.